Hello, and thank you for listening to the podcast. We appreciate it, and we appreciate a lot of help from a lot of people all throughout this journey. So we've got a couple of shout-outs we're going to make here. The first shout-out being to Beck Sutton, the graphics designer who is designing our logo. She is the creator and owner of Primal Studios, which can be found on Facebook. Or if you go to primalst.com, you'll be able to find her work there, and she is fantastic at what she does.
Yeah, and the second shout out we'd like to make is to Andrew Stanton, composer of the song Escape the Oppression, which is the kick-ass song for our intro. We love the song, we love the dude. You can check out more of his stuff on soundstripe.com, where there's plenty of songs by plenty of other artists as well, where you can license for podcasts. So go check it out and see what's on there and see what you can use.
Stay frosty. Hello, you're listening to part one of the Iron Maiden Anthology. This is a little bit beforehand, before we up the irons, motherfuckers. Me and Connor just have a very quick message. This is going to be uploaded on Podbean and on YouTube on Thursday, the 8th of October, which will probably be when you're hearing it for the first time. If you are hearing that and you want to wait a few more days, by Tuesday, which will be what day are we? So by the 13th, there's going to be a separate YouTube video for it as well, where we're just trying to take a bit more.
We're trying something out, have a bit of an experiment with something new and fun.
Yeah, we just want to try and push the boundaries of DMCA and liberties. You know, I want to throw sort of live footage and pictures and images and things like that in there for Maiden as well.
Stuff that connects to what we're talking about. Give a bit of a visual stimulus to it.
Exactly, because when we're talking about Derek Riggs, the artist for Maiden, we want you to be able to see the album covers, which to be fair, you can find on Google Images after, but we want it all to be there in the podcast so you can actually watch it as you listen to it. I know some people obviously prefer just listening to it and and listen to the albums at a later date, but if you were wanting more of a interesting visual experience, that will be coming out by the latest Tuesday the 13th. I am working on it at the moment. I've been working on it for some weeks. I'm hoping it's going to be fucking spectacular when I actually get around to doing some work on it.
I'm sure it'll be lovely, man. I'm excited to see it.
But yeah, I just want to throw in old footage of them with Diano. Try and actually use some, because it's more likely it's going to be live music that's thrown in there. Because I don't want to push too much and put the actual album recorded stuff, because that tends to be a bit more of a grayer no area. But that way, when we talk about fantastic songs, you should be able to hear some of those fantastic songs rather than just listen to us waffle on about how fantastic they are. If it works well, it might be something that we do on the more reg. So there'll be we'll have the bland one where it's just us talking, or you can have the visual experience of a lifetime.
So we hope you enjoy listening to this either way, and keep your eyes out for some other stuff that we're doing, and hope you enjoy all of it.
Scream for me, the songs that made us. Scream for me. We hope you enjoy. Thank you, and goodbye. Hello and welcome to The Songs That Made Us, the podcast that doesn't actually have anything interesting to say this time. Instead, we are introducing the very first episode of our anthology series. And on this episode, we're going to be looking at a band that I absolutely adore and absolutely love. But before we introduce them, allow me to introduce my beautiful friend, Mr. Connor Reed.
Oh, that's very nice.
I know.
You seem very professional and very kind for once. Is this a change of direction for us?
Yeah, this is now the happy touchy feely in a nice way, not a touchy feely in a Jimmy Savile way.
All right, no, we quickly got back to form.
To be fair, I wasn't expecting to reference Savile this early.
I love how you were expecting to, though.
Yeah, at some point it's inevitable. It's like I've forgotten what the theory's called. There's a theory that on the internet, everything like after about 5 or 6 comments, somebody will inevitably bring up Hitler.
I thought that was a thing. I thought that was like that's the thing with the internet. But I thought that was a theory in general with like conversation. Like if you talk long enough, you will end up bringing up Hitler for some sort of reason.
I don't know. I can talk to my
Because
friends.
he's such a massive part of human history or some shit.
I could probably go at least 24 hours speaking to my friends without mentioning Hitler.
I don't think you could. I mean, it's taken us less than 5 minutes of the podcast.
I mean, you brought him up though. That's not me.
I didn't bring him up. You brought him up.
Well, I brought up the law. I didn't necessarily bring up Hitler per se. I know. I did bring him up.
Play back the tape. You brought him up.
I did, but not in a sense that I didn't want to talk about him. I wasn't going to do a recital of Mein Kampf.
Yeah, well, now But look what's happened. We've quickly gone off subject.
I only do my Mein Kampf recitals at my skinhead meets that I go to. But so the very first episode of the Anthology series. So the Anthology series, in theory, what we're looking at doing is we're going to be taking a discography of a band that one of us loves.
Yeah.
We'll be subjecting the other one to listen to their discography, but we're going to be doing it in parts. We're going to breaking it down, especially for bands that have a long back catalogue, into essentially eras of the bands.
Yeah. So this is because technically this is our second take at this because we did the Arctic Monkeys where we listened to every album, but this is going to be a bit more in depth and a bit more sectioned off into different periods of time.
Yeah, I think the Arctic Monkeys one was very much like a trial run, but without any proper format.
Well, yeah, that was more to do with how bands change over time as well. Which is like the opposite of the band that we're talking about now, which I don't think have changed very much over time. Not to say they're bad, in fact they're excellent, but I wouldn't say they've changed too much over time.
I think by the time we get to episode 2, that's where we'll start hearing the definitive sound for them.
Yeah, exactly. Oh yeah, definitely. It gets developed over time. You can hear that a bit with these first 2 albums we're going to talk about.
So we've tickled your taint long enough. You should be raring to go now. The band we're going to be talking about is possibly the greatest metal export from the British Isles.
Ooh.
It is indeed the Iron Maiden.
Yeah, mate.
And I have got
just made that really chavvy. Yeah, mate.
Yeah,
let's talk about Iron Maiden can.
Yes. Yeah, boy. And that was a chav that we used to know.
Yeah.
Jake Hughes. That was years of my life just listening to that one fucking word. But yes, the Iron Maiden. I say the Iron Maiden. They're called Iron Maiden. I just always say the Iron Maiden because that's how Bruce Dickinson shouts it live.
And now, also to you, they are the Iron Maiden. Like,
well, they're the only Iron Maiden as a band that I know.
No, I'm talking like, do you know when people put the as in like it's a sign of like pure status? Like, because this is one of your favorite bands of all time, if not your favorite, right?
What, top 5?
Top 5, right? Exactly.
Probably top 3, potentially top 2. I need to do a think.
Fair, but yeah. So like, yes. So to you, they're the Iron Maiden. To me, they're Iron Maiden. The Iron Maiden, pretty damn great.
Now, bear in mind, in my room at the moment, I have a flag for the album cover of Fear of the Dark. I have a flag with the album cover of Peace of Mind. I've got a flag with the album cover Matter of Life and Death. And as a bassist, this is the fucking quintessential band that you need to play. Steve Harris is a god.
Yep. They're probably definitely one of the most iconic bassists of all time. And dare I say it, one of the best.
Oh, Christ, yeah, he's legitimately one of the best. Like, in terms of the people who shaped my playing style, it's Flea and Steve Harris for the most part. I do a gallop and then I do some slap bass.
Yeah, I will say as well, like I'm a much bigger Red Hot Chili Peppers fan than I am Iron Maiden fan, but I would concede that Steve Harris is a better bassist than Flea.
I think
they're very different.
Yeah, it's comparing apples to oranges, really. Yes, they play the same instrument, but they play a different genre, and they've got different styles of play. So Iron Maiden, for people who don't know, and this is where my research comes in handy, I'm going to give you some factoids, believe it or not, and it's not about octopus wrestling. So, they were formed... Do you want to know what day they were formed on? Have you done your research?
I did. They formed on Christmas Day.
Which is why we celebrate Christmas here in the UK. We didn't know anything about this Jesus Christ malarkey. We have got the years before Iron Maiden are called, 1BIM. and then we've got AM, which is after Maiden.
After Maiden. Lovely.
Yeah, so we're currently 45 AM at the moment. Right. Rather than using this whole Gregorian calendar bullshit, I go for the Maiden rule book. But yes, Christmas Day, the nativities would be much better, wouldn't they?
Oh man, with Eddie just coming out of a crib.
Yeah, you shake the crib. Oh, Eddie under the guiding star of Satan.
It would become a horror show. It'd be hilarious.
Oh, it'd be amazing. But yes, Christmas Day, which rather than write day, I wrote the word play just to make life more interesting for myself. 1975 by a man named Steve Harris. And they were named after Steve Harris watched an adaptation of The Man in the Iron Mask by Alexander Dumas, who did the Count of Monte Cristo and Three Musketeers, who is a fucking amazing author, and people should read his books because I'm intelligent and I read big books. I have many leather-bound books. Now, they formed in 1975. Their first gig was on May the 1st, 1976 at St. Nick's Hall in Poplar. And from that point on, they never looked back, god damn it. They got better. Now, in terms of the lineup, the early lineup of the band, I'm not going to go through each and every individual member because there were like 600 members in those first 5 years before they got to the first album. But they ended up essentially being a club or a pub band for the most part. They took up residencies in certain places where they play regularly. It took them a couple of years to sort of work on their sound, get settled, but from the very first, it was very much a dictatorship of a band. Steve Harris was a man with a singular mind and a singular idea. A man who once fired a guitarist for playing guitar with his teeth on stage.
Oh, pretending to play guitar with his teeth.
Well, that's how you do that Hendrix trick.
Oh, right, fair.
Yeah, you hold the guitar up so it's covering your face, but the way you hold it, you can still pick the strings, and then you just pretend that you. I know, I used to do it because I did it.
I feel like a bit of an idiot now because I always thought like that was a really cool trick that they did it with their like tongue or some shit.
You thought we cunnilingus on a guitar. Sorry, I'm giving this guitar a good head. No, you still pick it. It's just you cheat.
No, that makes a lot more sense.
Yeah, it's like a magic trick, mate. They don't use actual magic.
I can't say I'm with Steve Harris on this one. I've never tried it, and I think anyone who does try it is stupid.
I watched Hendrix and I thought I can do that. And then I learned that I'm actually a really shit guitarist and it's not advisable to do it on bass. Also, the fucking sound you get if you tried using your tongue or your teeth would be awful.
Yeah, true that.
You did it wrong, mate.
I never did it.
Lies.
I refuse to create a rumor that I licked my guitar.
Well, I sleep with mine. All of them just around me. We have orgies. 6-string, 4-string, 5-string. I don't mind.
Oh my god.
Now, after a couple of years of sort of doing all these gigs and trying to make a name for themselves, they finally came across a man named Rob Smallwood, who would play a massive part in Iron Maiden, still does to this day. He took over as manager for them, and he helped broker him a deal with EMI. But whilst they were waiting for the deal with EMI, they recorded their demo, which is called the Soundhouse tapes, which are more of a well, you can find them on YouTube and things like that nowadays, but they were more of a collector's edition, and sort of they can go for like 800, 900 quid nowadays if you're trying to buy the physical version. But it was 3 songs done on that, which was self-titled song, Iron Maiden, which is a great song, Prowler, and a song called Invasion, which never actually appeared on any of their albums. But initially, as they were sort of finalising the lineup for the first album, they reached out to a young chap named Mr. Adrian Smith on the guitar, who told him to fuck off because he was playing with Urchin at the time and was busy doing a bit of touring, doing his own thing, sorting his life out. And they got rid of their drummer at the time, Samson. He was a bit ill, so they said fuck off. because that's how Steve Harris operates.
Yeah.
he's,
No
he's
remorse.
yeah, he's just like, no, well, you a bit ill. Yep, fuck off, get out of my band. Like, he wouldn't have put up with any Def Leppard bullshit. One arm, get going. And from that point, the first album, because they couldn't get Adrian Smith, they got Dennis Stratton on guitar alongside Dave Murray. Clive Burr came in on the drums, Paul Di'Anno on vocals, and Steve Harris on bass. And that is the lineup that takes us to 1980, when they record in the studio. They record the debut album, Iron Maiden.
And it was an instant success.
Well, pretty much. So the Soundhouse tapes were an instant success as well. They could have made a shit ton of money. Oh, like they could have cashed in on just that alone.
Yeah.
But the debut album, like they'd already built up a cracking following early on. So the debut album, Iron Maiden, as I said, in 1980, was recorded in Kingsway Studios, and it's produced by Will Malone, who was not a great producer. He was rather apathetic, and Maiden just pretty much did it themselves.
Well, I think I read that because they went through a couple producers and they didn't either get along with them or didn't like the sound they were producing, and they ended up going with this guy because they knew they could bypass him and essentially do it themselves.
Yeah, they can go straight to the sound engineer.
And I think they did something like, I think I read as well, that they produced this in something like 13 days, which is pretty crazy actually. I mean, like, admittedly, this album, if I had like one major complaint. No, it's not really a complaint because I don't mind it actually. But
Watch your step, young man.
it's not a cleanly produced album at all. It's very rough.
Well, you think about it. They've got a producer who doesn't care.
Yeah.
It's their first proper recording, like for an album like this, and they're having to do it themselves. And the production's very mucky. The sound on it.
It is. It's got it's something I quite like actually, but like one of the things a lot of like reviewers and stuff said at the time, it has a punk sort of rough vibe to it, which Steve Harris hated.
Yeah, I was going to say, don't say it to Steve Harris, he'll punch your lights out and tell you to fuck off that band.
You can tell as well that when and we'll talk about it more when we get to the second album, but they completely were like making a point of going, yeah, we're going far away from that from the second album. But in this first album, yeah, it's got this rough, scratchy sound that I quite enjoy, and actually a few of the songs are quite punky in my opinion as well. Which is, as we were saying earlier, that before recording, that they were sort of establishing a sound, and it took them a little while to sort of get that. And what I find as well, especially with this first album, is the songs are very mixed. They're very different from one another, and they're experimenting with a lot of different things. Like, it definitely almost sounds like some songs were just they spent more time working on some songs than they did other songs. But yeah, it's an excellent album. It's a really good album.
Well, that's the thing. A bunch of the songs came from when they were, doing their club kids touring, all of that. Like some of the songs appeared on the Soundhouse demos. They had already played live a lot of these songs. We'll get onto it when we do go on to the second album, but on the second album, the producer they get is then a long-term collaborator.
Yeah.
So he's a guy who helped shape their sound massively and played a sort of important part of their career.
Yeah.
Now, I'm going to go through the track list on this album.
Are we going to talk about them as you go through them, or are you just going to go through the whole list and then we'll talk about it after?
I reckon we'll talk about it as we go.
Yeah.
I think that'd be the best way of doing it.
We'll do that.
You're seeing how the sausage is made, people. This is us throwing bits of anus and animal dick in there. That's how you make sausages, isn't it?
You're just equating our opinions to anus and animal dick.
Well, I mean, if it looks like a cow and sounds like a cow, what do you expect to call it? I hold ourselves in great esteem here, it seems.
Really?
So, in terms of, well, one of the things I was going to say as well, actually, before we do that, very, very quickly, now, the album cover introduced us to an iconic figure in Iron Maiden history.
Eddie used to scare the crap out of me as a kid.
Ed the Head.
Yeah. It is terrifying. I thought for ages as well that I recognized it from a film. Like I thought they had got the idea of Eddie from a film, and I
Oh,
think
it
it's
does
actually like
Babe's 30, isn't it?
what?
It does.
What are you talking about? No, I think I must have got it from like Jason and the Argonauts or something like that. But yeah, the thing is like you see Eddie and he sticks in your mind. Like I think because for years I wasn't a fan of Iron Maiden, not because I didn't like them, but because I just never really listened to them. I got into Metallica way before Maiden or anything like that.
Yeah.
And but one thing I knew very strongly was Eddie. And like he's so iconic now. He's almost as big, if not bigger than the band in a lot of cases.
So there's a little bit of, I don't want to say disparity when describing like how Eddie came about, but the main story of it is made by the very first version of Eddie was a mask made by an art student who was friends with Dave Beasley, who was in charge of lighting and pyrotechnics
Right.
and effects for the Maiden shows. And the original mask is paper mache mold of his own face, which the band then started using like with the backdrop, with the band's logo, lights and all that.
Fair.
And they used to get a fish tank filled with fake blood, which would or a fish tank pump rather, which would squirt blood out of the mouth of the mask.
Ah, grim. It's a cool idea though to have a mascot for your band. I think it could either like it worked out really well for Maiden. It could be a really corny, cheesy, shitty thing, but for them it like I think it's just because of how terrifying and how badass he is and looks, and it
Well,
kind of suits just the heavy metal vibe perfectly. That it's just worked so well.
what they ended up doing is, so that was all part of an idea from Rod Smallwood, who, like I said, he had a massive impact on their career and still does. He decided that they needed like one figure who was going to be stamped sort of on the albums. It's going to be consistent image
Yeah,
that would make it, which they could then use for album covers going forward, and it would be a quick look at and go, oh, this is Maiden.
yeah.
So he saw some artwork from a chap named Derek Riggs, and they were sort of trying to decide how to do the first album cover, and he ended up doing the iconic drawing for the first album. And I can't remember how many albums Derek Riggs did in the end, but he did a shit ton of them. He pretty much defined the way they look with album covers, and especially the way Eddie looks, and just come up with some absolutely phenomenal designs when we get to some other albums.
All of their album covers are some of the best album covers. They're absolutely amazing. I just find it so interesting though. I can't really think of another band that has a mascot. Like the closest in my head is like the Gorillas, which is they all had their animated characters that are very recognizable. But other than that, I can't really think of anything.
Bez. That's the closest I can get to.
Bez is a mascot. I mean, yeah, it's true.
He kind of is, but he's not used in that kind of way.
No.
He just dances on stage. I suppose you could say like the Death Bat from Avenged.
Maybe, yeah. That's more of like a symbol, an icon. It's like Batman.
Yeah, I see what you mean.
Yeah, it's just a really unique thing. It's really cool. I really like it.
So, also, if you don't know what Eddie looks like, on these first two albums, picture a zombie punk rocker.
Almost skeleton, like thin to the point that he's a skeleton sort of thing.
Well, I think it looks like he's been sort of insanguinated, so drained of all blood.
And he's appeared as like a zombie before as well.
Oh, he's appeared as a zombie. He's appeared as a mental patient. He's appeared as a skeleton. He's appeared as a mummy.
Sphinx. Yeah.
No, he wasn't
a sort of pyramid.
But the greatest thing with the Eddie artwork though is so Sanctuary. I don't know which version of the album you listen to.
I've listened to the one with Sanctuary, and it was the remastered one, so it was track 2.
Yes. Yeah, so it's a remastered one. So Sanctuary wasn't on the original UK release, but it was on the US release.
Yeah.
And they did release it as a single, and the album artwork for the single featured Eddie knifing Margaret Thatcher.
Oh shit.
And
Yeah.
that got him a bit of heat for that one. Which, to be fair, if you're going to do anything with Margaret Thatcher, I think that's probably the best thing to do.
It's a very punk move, I will say.
Well, exactly. And that's the thing that they did give. They released a single called "Women in Uniform," which I believe was a cover. And on that they have Margaret Thatcher watching Eddie from around a corner with a gun. So
Right.
she gets her comeback.
Yeah.
But right, that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna be looking through the song list, weren't we?
Yeah.
But no, Eddie plays such an important part of the Maiden visual, like to the point where if they have large animatronic Eddies on stage.
It's the best. It's so cool. Watch any of their live gigs, because one, they're amazing live anyway.
Oh god, yeah.
But two, the spectacle, especially when Eddie comes out and stuff, sometimes it's unbelievable. So plays a massive part of like their music videos and stuff as well, and he gets really well animated, and yeah, they're just really, really cool. I just think it's a really cool idea to have a mascot, and I'm a massive fan. I'm a huge fan of Eddie.
Now, bit trivia: Graham Chapman of Monty Python fame, his last appearance in any sort of video or anything was "Can I Play with Madness?"
No way! I didn't know that.
It's 100% true, but that's going to be in that'll be the third episode we actually dive into the album that's on.
Yeah.
But for people who know Maiden, just before we go into the track list, this is going to be the the long sell. People are going to be getting like 2 hours into this, going, "Where's the fucking track list coming up?"
It's still the first album.
But that's the thing. I think people are more going to know Iron Maiden from songs like Number of the Beast, Run to the Hills, The Trooper, the things like that, the classic songs.
Yeah.
Now, this is Maiden before Bruce Dickinson, so the vocals are different. The vocals are gnarlier. They're more sort of growly and punky.
Well, yeah, so I do actually want to talk about this. So, what's his name again? Paul
Diano.
Paul Diano, yeah. Paul
Who
Diano.
is actually a benefits cheat.
Oh, shit. Well, fuck you, Paul. I was about to give him a load of compliments. I was like, no, fuck you, Paul. No,
he wasn't a benefits cheat in 1980 or 1981. It's more recent that he's done that.
That's true. So past Paul.
They caught him out because he was. They caught him out because he was claiming disability, but he was still going on stage and singing.
For fuck's sake.
An idiot.
Asshole. But he had I'm a huge fan of Bruce. I think Bruce's voice is so unique and insane, and insanely his range and the almost operatic or theatrical way he sings is so powerful, and it suits Maiden so well. But Paul Diano is really fucking sick as well. But he has a much more conventional 80s metal voice.
He worked perfectly for these first two albums. He wouldn't work perfectly for the next few albums.
Yeah, it verges on almost like glam rock singing sometimes, which kind of suits because they supported Kiss, I think, on a tour, one of their first huge tours. I think I read somewhere. I may be wrong about that, but I think they did support Kiss. And yeah, it kind of suits that sort of glam rock style sometimes. And then other times he's got like this growl sort of, like I said before, punk vibe that I really dig as well. I think he's a really, really cool singer. He's just not quite Bruce, but that's because I know Bruce. Like I know Future Maiden, which is just better Maiden.
Oh, I thought you were about to let me in on the information that you're actually friends with Bruce Dickinson. You never told me. It's like, yeah, I'm mates with old Bruce.
I wish, because we'll talk more about Bruce in later episodes, but Bruce is just the best guy. Not just as a singer, but like as a human being. He's pretty damn sick.
We will discuss him much, much more. I have recently read his autobiography as well, or his memoirs.
Sick, yeah.
But yeah, Paul Diano is very much a different kettle of fish, and he sounds nothing like Bruce, which it doesn't sound like a compliment, but it is.
There's things they do that are similar when they do these long dragged out, like whoa, with like slight vibrato. They do both of them do that.
Yeah, but he tends to do it with a bit more vocal fry in it, doesn't he? Whereas Bruce will do it cleanly and a lot of vibrato.
And then like Paul will do much more of the like power rock, like really high, like almost like fucking Led Zeppelin sort of vocals sometimes that are like really like 80s heavy metal, which Bruce didn't really do.
Yeah, Bruce had his own way of doing things, and that's the thing. Like, ideally, you want vocalists to be different.
Yeah, I think Bruce is like he's such a. We shouldn't be talking too much about Bruce, but he's such
No,
a.
we should be talking about Paul.
Yeah. But Bruce is the thing is with Iron Maiden and nowadays after these two albums has such a unique identity. They sound very different from other metal bands, and a lot of that is because of Bruce. And with Bruce, and especially when other members like Nico join and stuff, they get such a very what's the word, iconic sound that's perfect for them. Here they're much more generic metal in these first two albums.
Yeah, you can see the sort of genesis of things that are to come, especially with the composition
Very,
of songs.
very strong. Like all of them are doing great. All of them are great musicians. All of them, like he's an amazing singer, and it's all really great metal, but it is much more standard metal.
Well, yeah, they're sort of trying out ideas and the ways of composing things, and they're learning as they're going, which is what you should be doing. But that takes nothing away from the first album. I love this album dearly.
This album's excellent. This album is really excellent.
So let's go through the songs one by one then.
Mm-hmm.
So the very first track on the album, the song that assaults you audibly, is Prowler.
Yeah, and this is one of the songs on the album that I find like really like heavy punk. I find this a punk song because it's less melodic. It's much more chanty. It's much more shouty. It reminds me. I'm not talking punk as in like Sex Pistols. I'm talking punk as in like The Gallows. If you were talking like modern day punk sort of thing, which is it's more heavy metal than it is punk, but it's definitely. I wouldn't say this has punk influences, but I understand why critics heard some of this stuff and thought punk.
Yeah, and that's sort of interesting. I think vocally, I would say more punk, but the composition behind is
exactly
a bit more metal. But it also has there's a section in it where it goes diddler 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 din din diddler diddler diddler.
Yeah,
that bit there is 100% the DNA of Maiden. That happens multiple 100%. Times throughout their career.
That's like their thing. They do that a lot, which is really cool, and it is part of their unique sound. But like it's the messy riff at the start of this song as well, which I also quite I find that quite scratchy and punky as well. It's such a sick riff, and like
but a lot of that though could be down to the production, rather than what they're going for, because I don't know. See, I haven't heard any of.
It's definitely not what they were going for. I don't think. Like
there was probably going to be more of a clearer sound on it, but it sounds so mucky. And that's the thing as well with Steve Harris' bass. He doesn't have. So by the time we get to the latest Steve Harris or sort of the next couple of albums, he's got a very distinctive sound with his bass.
Yeah.
He predominantly plays. Nowadays does is a Fender Precision, and it's I can't remember what pickups he uses, but essentially the way he attacks the strings is very unique, and the way it reacts with the pickup, it makes this clacking sound as it goes. And it's usually that gallop, but because of the production and everything, and probably a cheaper bass back then as well. It's got this really muddy sound with it.
I dig it. I really like the sound of this track, and it's such a hard track. It's a great opening song. I love this track a lot.
Did you pick up on any of the lyrics and what it's about?
Not quite. I get the sense it's like a stalker through the streets looking for women.
It's a stalker hiding in the bushes, jumping out and then flashing them.
Right. Okay.
When he says it's a real thing, babe, he's talking about his cock.
Right. Okay. Lovely track.
Which is it goes to show you that I've got something for weird tracks, right as opening tracks. We can take that all the way back to the Manic Street Preachers.
But this is a time as well, like we've talked about it before in this podcast, but like this is a time as well when metal enjoyed being metal, and it enjoyed being like the odd thing. Like you were a weirdo if you listened to metal, and you're okay with identifying as that. Do you know what I mean?
Kind of.
But like it's when metal were like people were writing dark songs, and like a lot of metal songs back, especially in the 80s and the 70s and stuff, were like like all about weird, dark subject matters.
What do you think of like Sabbath?
Yeah, exactly.
Songs they write.
Yeah,
But I think as well, it's also that they're playing it because they want to play it. It's the songs they're playing what they want to hear, effectively,
100%.
which
Yeah,
is what you should do as a musician. You shouldn't be playing just because you're trying to target an audience.
yeah,
Or which is why I can recognize great singers and things like that, but I can't. It's going to sound like I'm a bit of a dick now, which is true, but not usually for this reason. I tend to hate singers or artists, as they like to be known, who will sing lyrics and songs written by other people, because I think that you are very much, you're just a marketing campaign, aren't you? At that point, you're not actually.
You.
Like,
it takes away from the artistry of it.
Yeah, I think music should be produced and written by people who want to be playing and producing music, and they want to be saying something. Because I believe it should all come from your own experiences or your own point of view.
Completely. Having said that, though,
Meatloaf is very good.
But having said that, though, like Steve Harris, he wrote a lot of these songs. But I don't think he's a guy who goes in bushes and flashes women. Do you know what I mean? But that's what I'm getting at with the metal genre. There's people like, I would say more back then, but even now, like it's writing weird dark songs for the sake of writing weird dark songs because they're fun. They are fun.
Well, you also find it interesting. That's another key thing. But it's adding your own voice to it rather than anybody else's.
It suits the sound of the music as well.
Well, yeah, it's still a fucking cracking song regardless.
Mm-hmm.
So, song number 2, depending which version of the album you listen to, we are going to go for the long form version of the album. So, by long form, I mean one additional song, which takes it from like 37 minutes up to 40 minutes. Ooh, big scary changes. Sanctuary.
Yeah, and so this song was really popular. This is like a huge song at the time. I didn't find it as interesting as the first track. I don't find it as interesting.
It's quite straightforward.
It is a straightforward sort of almost thrashy song. It's definitely another hard-hitting song. And everyone's doing a great job. Great riff, great chorus, amazing solo.
Fucking pain in the ass bass.
Yeah, but it is just a bit more generic, I find.
Yeah, 100%. I still think it's a cracking song. I don't know how often they're playing it nowadays, but if you watch Rock in Rio 2001, they play it there. It's still popular. And if you can hear a dog in the background, that would be nice.
Yeah, Fudge is just moaning. He's just moseying about the house going.
He's grumbling. He's not moaning, he's just grumbling.
He's an old guy talking to himself.
The clouds have changed today.
Yeah, and
I quite like Maiden. Why aren't you asking me my opinion?
But so the thing is that with this track we can get into it a little bit, but like I find with this album there's songs that stand out on their own and they're sick, amazing songs, and then the rest of the album is good, but doesn't interest me as much. I think half this album I think is the whole album's great. Half of it I think is phenomenal, and then the other half I think is just really, really good. Yeah,
I can go with that. I would agree. Song number 3 then is probably, this is, I would say, Iron Maiden throwing their first thing at the wall. It sounds very more sort of typical Maiden, if that makes sense.
It's much more melodic.
Yeah, and it's a longer song. It's called Remember Tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
And it's got a slow bass riff at the start and melodic, and then a hard-hitting chorus.
Yeah, and this is where he sings very differently as well compared to the first two tracks. The first two tracks where he's a lot more rough and he's a lot more shouty, and it's not necessarily that melodic. He suddenly becomes like this very... His voice is great in this song.
Yeah, he's sort of very calm in his delivery with it.
Yeah, it's much more like ballady, it's much more melodic. It's a very, very nice song.
It's a very, very good song as well.
Yeah, well, alright.
Sorry, I'm just giggling at Fudge. All I can hear is just...
Fudge is having a go at me saying nice as well.
Which is what he's here going, "Arr, ruff, arr," like an idiot.
Fudge, what are you doing?
This is the issue of a pandemic.
Yeah, good.
Just can't recall without a dog being in the way.
I don't know what he's moaning about.
Oh, he's not a Maiden fan.
Yeah, he's got a lot to say.
He preferred like Warrant and bands like that. He thought Cherry Pie was a hard hitting song.
But yeah, no, Remember Tomorrow is a really, really lovely track. This is one of my more favorite ones on the album as well. But it's very different. So the whole album is, as I said earlier, it's a very mixed bag. Like it doesn't have a cohesive sound going through it. And as we said, like they're trying out different stuff. So compared to the very first the first two songs, this is a very, very different song.
Well, yeah, and this is where I say it's more like the genesis of that Maiden sound, because this is a lot of their albums from here on in, funnily enough, because this is the very first one. Have songs that are like this, where it's slow and building, it's telling a story, and it crescendos, and it's a longer song.
Yeah, you basically get two different Maidens. Like there's melodic Maiden, and then like the head-banging Maiden.
Yeah, melodic Maiden, galloping Maiden.
Yeah, that's what we'll call them. Yeah. Melodic Maiden, galloping Maiden.
And we go on to song number 4 now, which is Running Free, which is Galloping Maiden.
Yes, yeah. This was a pretty cool song. It's all right.
Well, it's Galloping Maiden, but at like half step speed.
Yeah. I think but that's a good point actually. I think I would have dug this song more if it was faster.
Yeah, this was one of the other singles from the album.
Yeah,
which seems
I imagine this song's really awesome live, because they have a tendency to speed up anyway live, and go a bit harder. I reckon this song would be really cool live.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. When we sound apathetic towards these songs, they are good songs. It's just that they're not as good.
There's not a bad song on this album. It's just there's great songs, and it really overshadows the other songs.
Now, we'll move swiftly on from Running Free. Instead, we'll go song number 5, which has a phenomenal bass line, which I love massively. Phantom of the Opera.
Yeah, this song was a song that I knew already going into this album. This is one of the more iconic songs, I suppose, especially
Definitely
from the early era. Yeah, this song's excellent. It's so different, and it's so cool. And this reminds me more of the Maiden to come.
100%. It's, rather than just having this sort of stereotypical feel of a metal song with it, it's got a sort of an almost proggy riff.
It wears its influences on its sleeve as well. It's going for that more kind of like, we're bringing those weird sort of Mozart-y sort of things, or like old school symphony things, but putting it into metal.
Well, and also it's them talking about musical or film or literature as well, which is something that they do a massive amount of.
It's a very grand song. It's very big. Like, it takes a while for any vocals to go in, which happens a lot with Maiden as well, but it works. And then the vocals and the lyrics are really big and they're really showy. And then the guitar is just crazy.
I do feel sorry for Paul Di'Anno on this one though, because his vocals have got to follow that riff spot on.
Yeah.
It seems just like an awkward way of doing it, but the way Steve Harris tends to write is he'll write the bass line out, and then he'll whistle how he wants the other things to go.
Right.
Which is
he must
works.
be a good whistler.
He's a very good whistler. I don't think he does it for the solos so much. I think he leaves that to the guitarist. He's not just like going, I can't whistle, so it's no good me trying it. You can't hear it. I just go.
Yeah. His bass is like turned up in this song as well. You hear it so clearly.
Yeah.
Like, it's the best. He's insane in the song. And then like one thing we haven't really mentioned much of is like the guitarists. This is where they shine. Like, they shine on this song so hard.
So I will plead ignorance on this. I don't know how much Dennis Stratton does in terms of being the lead guitarist, or whether Dave Murray does just do the lead guitar on this album. But we'll give Dennis Stratton his due. His guitar sounds great on here. But Dave Murray, in my mind, is the main lead on this.
Right.
And
yeah.
he is on the whole album, and Dave Murray is phenomenally talented.
Yeah, he's
And
insane.
he's got this annoying thing of, you can usually tell who does the solo on an album or on a song.
Yeah.
Because Dave Murray, this is more noticeable when Adrian Smith comes in later on. But Dave Murray's got, the way he solos, it's usually a lot of hammer-ons, a lot of pull-offs. But he's just got these fingers that just will not stop moving. Like, and you're like, how do you keep on doing this with consistency? Do your hands not tire, you freak?
Yeah, he's crazy. He's so good.
Yeah, I mean, and his face looks like it's just sort of been plastered on and like
Yeah.
cannot move. It looks like he's had 600 rounds of Botox, and this was back in 1980.
But I think he just looks really standard as a human.
Yeah, well,
Like, he doesn't look like he's the amazing guitarist of one of the best heavy metal bands on earth. Like, he's one of those people that if he just dressed normally, he could walk down the street and no one would recognize him.
unless he was outside a nursery, in which case people would call the police because he's got a
Yeah.
his face is a bit suspicious.
Yeah. But like one thing that we talked about before the podcast, and we should probably mention here as well, the other unique thing about Maiden is that, like, usually you would have your rhythm guitarist and a lead guitarist. I think that's the standard formula for a lot of big bands. But Maiden don't really do that, and it almost feels like Harris carries the rhythm for most of the songs, even though he does a lot of crazy shit as well and a lot of flourishes. And then it's just the other guitarists or all lead guitarists having their moments doing amazing shit.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. They all play the rhythm. They will all do harmony sections. They'll all do their own solos as well. So
Yeah.
and this is like much harder when you think nowadays they've got 3 guitarists, and they have done since Brave New World within the first album with all 3.
Yeah.
So 3 guitarists, they're all doing the main rhythm section, and then when you got harmonies, it just goes fucking mental. But
and they're all amazing. They all do crazy solos. They're all like, it's insane.
Well, it's the way you can sort of define him is Dave Murray does the hammer-ons. Adrian Smith is a little bit more flashy, but I suppose he's got more of a bluesy style to the way he does solos, which we'll definitely see on the next album. Not the next album, the next album.
Yeah.
Just to throw a teaser at the listeners. Whereas Yannick Gers is much more flashy.
Yeah.
And a bit more like a guitar wanker. Lots of like whammy, tapping, all those kinds of bits and bobs. Dave Murray does
your heavy metal guitarist like go to.
Yeah, I was saying that Dave Murray does like a bit of tapping.
He does.
He's very good at it. Now we're going to move on to possibly my least favorite song on the track, and that's because it's
least favorite song on the track
on the album. I've been working all day, all right. I'm a working man. I can't be on top of my game all the fucking time. Least favorite track on the album, and again, not because it's bad. It's just all right.
Yeah.
That's the worst I can say about it. It's called Transylvania, and it's an instrumental.
Yeah, I dug it. I really liked this song. I think it's really
nice.
good. I think it's a really good instrumental. It's better than a lot of other, like, I always find it weird when bands, it's a very big trope in the heavy metal genre. A lot of heavy metal bands like to do instrumentals.
If you disparage Call of Cthulhu again, I'm going to come over there and just slap you.
No. Metallica's instrumentals are brilliant. But so are Iron Maiden's. I really dig Iron Maiden's instrumentals. We'll talk about one again in the second album, which I do think is better. But yeah, the instrumental in this album is pretty good. But I always find it weird. I don't get why heavy metal bands just do instrumentals.
I don't know, because I would always think instrumentals are more for showing off, but these aren't. These are very much just, I don't know. It's
they sound like Iron Maiden's instrumentals almost sound like soundtracks. Like, I kind of want a music video to them, and like.
Well, I suppose it also comes back down to sort of proggy kind of influences with it as well.
Yeah.
But Transylvania is good. It's just, for me, it's just there. If that makes sense.
Okay,
it's good. I like it. It's just I want to move on to other songs, you know.
Yeah. That's fair.
But that's because I like fast-paced, aggressive, angry shit.
Mm.
It's the only stuff I like, apparently, in this weird world. Next song does pretty much follow straight on from Transylvania, and it all meshes together quite nicely. And that's Strange World, which again for me is just kind of a song that's there, but it's a good song.
It's another one of those good songs. Really great guitar again. I do like how it links with the instrumental. But I did find the instrumental when I was listening to it, actually. So a bit of context for the listeners, like, because obviously Jake's a massive fan of Iron Maiden. I really like Iron Maiden, but I've never been a huge fan. I've been way more of a fan of Metallica, but I do like a lot of Iron Maiden tracks. I had listened to these albums years and years ago, back when I was going through the Iron Maiden discography, and then I haven't listened to them since. It's been like 10 years. So coming back to these albums again was really, really interesting, and I really, really enjoyed them.
I think that's the thing for me as well, actually, because I've listened to these albums a lot more regularly than you have. Like, for me, because I know what's there and I know what comes up, I can be more apathetic to some of these songs.
See, for me, it was like listening to this for the first time again. So I didn't actually realize that these were two different tracks, because of how similar they are, at least in tone. I thought
Transylvania does lead straight into Strange World.
When I was listening to this, I thought it was one huge track, and for me, that made it maybe that's the difference. For me, that made both of these tracks a lot better, because I just heard them as one huge epic track that had an amazing atmosphere, just really cool atmosphere and really nice melody and stuff.
So I've just got this image of you like sat there listening to it, not noticing that it's a change of tracks, going, "Oh, this is like their first attempt at Hallowed Be Thy Name."
Kind of, yeah, that's the thing. Like, because that's something that later Maiden do really fucking well. Is building a track is insane. I mean, like, and you can go to their more standard sort of everyone loves tracks like Fear of the Dark or Hallowed Be Thy Name, which are both phenomenal tracks. But yeah, it's something that they do better than most other metal bands, maybe better than any other metal band. Is just build an atmosphere and build a track so fucking well.
Well, you think about the way other metal bands do it, and I know we've talked about them a lot recently, so I'm keen not to bring them up too much, but Metallica, you think about their longer tracks, they're all about these fast-paced riffs, and they've got a middle section which is a bit slower, then a Kirk Hammett solo, which can be hit or miss nowadays, but back in the day, like Master of Puppets, for instance, or Creeping Death, you've got that middle section which slows down, whereas Maiden, they tend to have like this slow start, then it kicks up a gear, then it goes back to slow, then you've got this like an iconic chorus.
Kind of, yeah. I mean, the one that you can make a good comparison to with Metallica is One. I mean, they do have a few tracks like what's the fucking Fade to Black as well. Like, am I thinking Fade to Black?
That starts slow,
maybe,
and then only kicks up.
So like, yeah. Yeah, they do have a couple tracks that do it fucking phenomenally as well. But I think I'm a bigger Metallica fan than Iron Maiden. I don't know if I think Metallica are better than Maiden. That's
your
not the
opinion's
comparison I want to make.
Change by the time we get to the end of the anthology. I can guarantee you that.
Completely. Like, I don't think Metallica are better than Maiden. I think they're probably both as good as each other. But I've just always been a bigger Metallica fan. But I will say that
Metallica a lot harder than you did Maiden. Bear in mind, we were raised on Metallica.
Exactly, yeah. But I do think in terms of these tracks that are slow and build and become fucking epic, Metallica have more iconic ones, but I actually think the Maiden ones are more interesting with how they play around with it more.
Well, I think Maiden, the key thing they do really, really well is because it tells a story the whole way through, and it's not all fast paced with only a bridge for a musical section.
Yeah. And it works later on as well.
It hooks you into it.
Yeah, and because these songs are like story songs and atmosphere songs, it works better for Maiden later on as well, because as we said, Bruce has such a theatrical voice.
Yeah.
That lends to a story so strongly.
And that's not discrediting Paul's again either, because his does work really well in these first two albums.
Yeah.
And he is able to do that, but we'll get to some of the more iconic versions of that.
I will say though,
do the next recording.
I will say though, because obviously Iron Maiden still to this day perform tracks from these two albums, and not to put anything down on Paul, but I think Bruce sings them better.
See, I'm mixed. I don't know. It's whether because I
It
like
depends.
things.
With songs like Prowler, actually, Prowler I prefer Paul doing it.
Yeah,
But
with Sanctuary, I would prefer Bruce doing it, but there's a
exactly,
sort of
yeah,
mixture of things. Remember Tomorrow, for instance, and Phantom of the Opera, you want Bruce doing it because his voice works perfectly for those songs, even
exactly,
though
yeah.
they're written for Diano. But Diano, his voice works really well for these two albums, so I can't give him enough credit for the way he sounded back then.
Yeah,
I
and
don't know.
it is an excellent voice, and it is such an interesting voice as well. And he is really versatile. He does a lot of different stuff on both these albums.
Well, it's something that will crop up in the anthology. So for people who don't know, Maiden throughout the years that they've been releasing albums anyway, let's say, because they've probably had 600 vocalists beforehand. But they have 3 vocalists in total, which is Paul Di'Anno, Bruce Dickinson, and Blaze Bayley, and all of them are unique, and
Yeah,
all of them fit perfectly for that time and place.
completely. But I will say, out of the 3 of them, it's Paul is the most versatile. The problem Bruce has is that he always sounds like Bruce, so he can't really he can't really escape it or change it too much.
It's
He
a
can't
blessing
stop
and a
sounding.
curse.
Yeah, he can't stop sounding so theatrical, so it doesn't necessarily work for songs like Prowler. Um, but
I know we're
like,
going. This is going to put us in the future a little bit. The Trooper.
yeah,
Do you reckon
that's a
that would
bit
work
more
better
like
with?
it.
Do you reckon that would work better with Paul Di'Anno?
Maybe, to be honest, maybe because Paul, I do just love how versatile his voice is. He sings. It goes in hand with what I said earlier as well about all of these songs sounding almost like they're all from different albums. Um, they don't all fit together very well, but he always changes his voice to suit the needs of the songs brilliantly,
Yeah.
and it works excellently each time. And I do love the fact that he can do these power rock big notes, really 80s metal style, but then also go into this like punk shouty thing, and then also do this more like smooth, like softer tones. Maybe he would sound better on Trooper, but then I don't know. It's just hard not
It's
to
those weird
imagine
sort of
Bruce,
things.
because it's the thing is I do ultimately, as much as I like Paul, I do ultimately think it was way better when they got Bruce because it's the identity thing, it's the iconic thing. Like
Yeah.
the songs are more interesting because of how iconic his voice is. True, like Paul's voice probably suits Trooper more, but Trooper would be more of standard a song. Do you know what I mean?
Kind of. I think. I think with
What makes
Trooper
it
though.
more interesting is the fact that Bruce is a bit weird in it, but it works.
Yeah. Fair enough. I think it just would work a little bit better with the gruffer vocal on it. If that makes
Yeah,
sense. But
that's the thing. Yeah, Bruce is
um,
very clean. He's got quite a clean voice. Well, not all the time, but a lot of the time, comparatively.
yeah. Well, moving on then to song number 8, our penultimate song, the one before the end. For people who don't know what words like penultimate mean, I'm just insulting the intelligence of our
Yeah,
two.
we don't mean to talk down to people.
Well, it's like how I'm insulting the intelligence of our listeners, and our listeners comprise of me and you.
Exactly. It's another roundabout way of just insulting me.
Hey, I called you beautiful earlier, and I've done nothing to disavow you of that notion just yet.
Not yet. All right.
Yet. So song number 8 is Charlotte the Harlot.
This was a cool song. I really like this song.
Do you like the bass riff at the start?
Yeah. This was a really excellent song.
Now, this song is so. I'm going to throw over a Chili's comparison here.
Okay.
So with the Chili's, they have 3 songs which follow one person, which culminates with Danny California.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think she was in Scar Tissue, by the way, and then Danny California, if I remember rightly. This is essentially Maiden's version of that. Charlotte Harlot appears in 4 songs in total throughout the Maiden catalogue.
All right.
Yeah, and this one was written by Dave Murray as well, rather than by Steve
Cool.
Harris.
Really cool.
And it's
This is
based on,
this is a really hard song. It's like good to headbang to.
well, it's based apparently it's based on a true person. Who I think
Right.
is
So he had
there.
some anger.
Oh no, I don't think it was anger. I think it was more just a person that they knew who lived in a place where people would
Right.
lose their virginity to her.
Yeah.
But she was sort of this middle class woman who was up for grabs, should we say?
Yeah. But it's just a really interesting song. Like musically, it sounds brilliant. The story in it is just really interesting. It's it's a like big departure from the more generic songs on the album.
100%. And again, it's all down to the composition of the song, the riff, the guitars, everything just works perfectly. The vocals work perfectly. The lyrics are great. This is a standout of the album.
Yeah, completely.
One of the standouts. There's a lot of fucking standouts.
This is like, so here's the thing, like I'm really excited now from these two albums to go through the entire Maiden catalog again. And I'm definitely making notes of like what I fucking love. And this is one of the songs I'll go back to and listen. There will be, don't get me wrong, again, the album's great, but I don't know if I'm going to listen to the whole album that much. But there are definitely about 3 to 4 songs on this album that I'll go back to and listen to quite often. This is definitely one of them.
It's all right, Maiden fans. I've got your back. I will listen to this whole album again repeatedly because I really do.
Well, this is so. What we're about to do. I'm about to get into a fight with all the Maiden fans, including you, because the last song on this album, Iron Maiden, I do not like. You look so angry.
You've actually shocked me into silence. I didn't realise that was possible. I love this song.
No, and actually, when I say I don't like it, sorry, it's again a really good song. It's one of the more generic songs for me on the album.
I can see that, especially with the way it's written. Bear in mind, I imagine this was probably one of the first songs they ever wrote.
Yeah.
Because this was on the Soundhouse demos. It was on.
Completely. Mate, this is their. I mean, the song's called Iron Maiden. This is their big intro song. Like this don't get me wrong, I'd love to see this live, and this would work really well in gigs as the first song of a set or the last song of a set.
Live is phenomenal. They tend to get Eddie out during the song. Now,
of course.
If
it's iconic, which is cool. But if I'm being brutally honest, it's just not that interesting a song for me.
I think this version of the song isn't the best. I think if you, as we go through the anthology, one of the things we're going to do, rather than just the albums as well, we are going to get Connor to listen to some of the live DVDs and things like that. So stuff like Made in England or Live at Donington and Rock in Rio, things like that. This works really, really fucking well.
I've seen Rock
as a live song. Yeah, everyone's seen Rock in Rio, mate. Rock in Rio is phenomenal.
Yeah, so
250,000, 300,000
fans. And there was the documentary I watched as well.
En Vivo?
No.
Or Flight 666.
Flight 666. That was so good.
Sorry, En Vivo wasn't a documentary. En Vivo was just a compilation of live things. Or in Santiago, Chile with his weird.
Right. Yeah, because there was a point in time where I was supposed to see Maiden live, and for some reason or another, I can't remember why, but I didn't end up doing it. I think I was supposed to go Sonisphere one year, and Maiden were there. So I got really hyped, and I watched like the Flight 666 documentary and everything like that, and I was like, ah!
I can't remember I think my mum went to Sonisphere, and she saw them live, which was annoying for me. I went up to watch Arsenal at one point, and Maiden were playing like the next night, and I just didn't have enough money to do it.
Yeah. See, they're on my list. Like, even though I was never a massive fan, they are on my list of bands I must see live because they're just so iconic, and they do have. I know enough of their songs to know that I'd have a fucking amazing time at that gig.
They're 100% on my list. When I have the money and the opportunity, I'm seeing them. Unfortunately, because they're massive arena sellers, like they're very expensive.
Yeah, of course.
Which is annoying. But with this song, I mean, it's their coming out by We're Iron Maiden.
Yeah, I mean it's an iconic track, really iconic track, and I love it for that. But after going through, it was a bit of an anticlimax after Charlotte the Harlot, which I enjoyed so much.
Do you think it would work better if Iron Maiden was the first track on the album?
I don't know, because Prowler is such a good intro.
Well, I'm thinking with
actually Prowler... no, but Prowler could work as a great second song there as well. As
a great second song, or you switch them around completely and Prowler's your outro.
Maybe, yeah. To be honest, I would prefer it if you switch the two, because Prowler is such an excellent song, and it's so different from Maiden as well. When when I started this album, and I was like, I knew I was expecting it to be very different from Maiden. I know very, very well because obviously know Bruce. But when Prowler came on, I was like, I had to double check that I selected Maiden. I was like, this doesn't sound like Maiden at all.
Is this a tribute band?
But I found it so interesting, and I love the track so much. And I think it would have been less anticlimactic after Charlotte the Harlot if it was Prowler, because then it would
Yeah.
be a really strong thing for me as a first-time listener. Well,
So
not a first-time listener, but feeling like a first-time listener.
So I think then Iron Maiden probably is the better idea as the outro song.
Yeah.
Just with that riff, the way it's a sort of calling card for the band. Now we'll do the usual thing, guessing the favourite song.
Yeah. See,
Yeah.
I don't know what to pick for you.
This is going to be much harder for you nowadays.
Yeah, this is going to be really difficult.
You could probably pick a grand total of 5 songs, and I'll probably go, yep.
Okay, that's fine then. I think maybe Charlotte the Harlot, and I also kind of want to say Iron Maiden as well.
I'll say no for Charlotte the Harlot.
Okay.
Iron Maiden, one of the picks for me, yeah.
Fair.
To be fair, Iron Maiden, Sanctuary, Prowler, Remember Tomorrow, Phantom of the Opera, like any of those choices, I would have gone.
Yeah. So maybe it won't be that hard for me.
For you, it's going to be Prowler.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, I was going to say it was either going to be that or Remember Tomorrow.
No, for me, it's either Prowler or Charlotte the Harlot.
Well, yeah. Now that we talked about it, that would have been.
Yeah, but
when we were talking pre-recording, I was thinking Remember Tomorrow would be the one that you would have.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
It's good. It's a good song. I really enjoy it. That's one of the ones that maybe I'll come back to probably, but songs that I'll definitely come back to on this album, the 3 specifically is Prowler, Phantom of the Opera, and Charlotte the Harlot. 100%. And Prowler is the bit like I genuinely, when I started the track, checked that it was Maiden, was like, yeah, it's Maiden. And then I think I didn't even continue with the rest of the album. I think I listened to it for like 3 times in a row because that riff is just really infectious.
Well, and the new introduction, if you listen to the podcast where we conversed with Joel Ditch, final grade on the album.
As a whole album, because
as a whole.
Yeah, as a
you
whole
can't just
album,
do parts.
because the whole album's really good, really, really, really good, and some tracks are really excellent. But because not all of the tracks are really excellent for me, I'm gonna say it's about a 7.5.
That's not
7.5 to an 8. Oh yeah, we're doing grades as in A, B, C. I remember now.
So I would say a B plus would be what you're trying to say there.
I'd say a B. I'll give it a B.
Okay. For me, A plus. I think it's a matter of looking at it contextually for me as well. It's their debut album. I can't think of any metal albums that are as good as this as a debut album.
I prefer Kill 'Em All to this, personally.
Ooh, see, I wouldn't.
But that's fair. But I mean, we're entitled to our own opinions.
Yeah, no, we are. I think we Kill 'Em All. Like, there's a lot of shit on there. Like, No Remorse, I don't really like. Jump in the Fire is really crap. But
I like them.
But
I went through a phase for a while where Kill 'Em All was like my favorite Metallica album, though. So.
Yeah, well, I think it's got the iconic tracks where like Whiplash and Seek and Destroy on there, which
I think that's
breath.
Yeah, I think that's the thing, is that there's maybe 2 tracks that I still think are really, really good, but I won't play that often from Kill 'Em All. Whereas from this, I think it's almost half the album.
Yeah, that's fair enough. But we're going to jump in our time machine. And now bear in mind also, actually, one thing we need to say about Iron Maiden, it was released in 1980, and I believe in a month's time, or a month or two's time, it's going to be 40 years old.
Wow, that's crazy. That's crazy.
Yeah,
they've been around.
And they are still fucking going.
Still sounding excellent.
Well, yeah, like despite their age.
Yeah, it's crazy.
They're freaks.
They did much better than Metallica.
And if you listen to the S&M episode, you there's feelings on this. But we are going to transport ourselves to the magical world of 1981. So, by the power of time travel, which me and Connor have,
Sick.
We are now in 1981, those hallowed days of old, when the grass was greener and the buildings were greyer, and the people were gayer, but nobody knew. I've just written a song.
That is so true.
This,
80s England, which everyone associates with happiness, right?
wow. It was
It's
only
like
it was only the kids that had their milk stolen.
Oh god.
So we are looking at the second Iron Maiden album, and it is the album Killers.
Yeah.
Yeah, boy. And this is the album where sort of the parts are changing a little bit, and we're getting one step closer to the definitive Iron Maiden lineup.
Instantly as well, they sound a lot more Maiden. A lot more of the Maiden I know.
A lot more Maiden. It's still
well produced.
Work in progress. A lot better produced.
Yeah.
Now the producer was a chap called Martin Birch, who worked with them from this point onwards up until I think he did Fear of the Dark, and I think that was it. And unfortunately, he passed away in April.
Oh, bless.
Yeah.
Bless him.
Yeah, but he was a cracking bloke, fantastic producer. Went around a lot with the band, got drunk a lot with Bruce and the band.
Yeah.
His alter ego would come out when drunk. But it was an instant improvement, and he, again, like Rod Smallwood, he's not the musician in the band, but he's a guy who leaves such an indelible print on the band, like Rick Rubin did with the Chili's.
Yes, I get you. Yeah. Yeah, the production of this album is really, really cool, and good on him for helping make their sound, because their sound's amazing.
And they're trying more things. Mm-hmm. They're producing their sound a bit. But when I say about the lineup, at this point, Dennis Stratton, who played on the first album, who was pretty much there as a stopgap, he's out. Adrian Smith, who they tried recruiting beforehand, is in. And this is the twin guitar attack, which will take us up into, I think, the last album with these guys for a brief hiatus is No Prayer for the Dying.
Yeah, so basically all we need is Nico, and then we get Maiden, the Maiden I know.
And Bruce.
Oh, yeah, and Bruce.
Well, no, to be fair, the Maiden you know, it does start with Clive Burr on drums.
That's true. And we haven't mentioned him, by the way, but he is excellent. Obviously, Nico's a legend. It's a similar sort of thing. It's a shame with Iron Maiden, actually, because obviously Bruce, legend, Nico, legend, and you're always going to associate them being two of the best people in the game. And it doesn't diminish the fact that these guys were also brilliant on these first two albums.
Clive Burr's for the first three albums. Mm-hmm. So Clive Burr does Number of the Beast as well.
Yeah, and he is excellent. He is so fucking good.
He is phenomenally talented. These
fantastic. Drums are insanely hard to play. Yeah, especially when you get onto the album after as well. Number of the Beast, it's disgusting.
Well, that's things. This is the first Adrian Smith album. It's going to be the last Paul Di'Anno album, which is why the anthology for the first episode is just these two albums. Yeah. It's the start of Iron Maiden. It's the Paul Di'Anno era, we'll call it. Yeah. And the penultimate album of Clive Burr. And the evolution of the sound that would come to define them it's here.
Yes, completely. It's definitely the beginnings of it are here. And for me, especially in the second part of the album. So as a sort of preface, before we get into the track list, one thing I'll say straight off the bat is for the first half of this album, I was like, meh, it's good. But I preferred the first album. And then when we got to the second half of the album, from Genghis Khan, essentially, it completely shifted, and the album was so sick.
So I will say overall, I prefer the first album, but this album is very close.
Yeah.
There's not much to differentiate.
Yeah, I think that for me, the first album, on the songs that we've already mentioned, that was really fucking... It has better standout songs, more iconic, really great standout songs.
Whereas this as a full piece is probably more cohesive.
Completely. And the second half of this album, from, as I said, from Genghis Khan, from then till the end, I was so into it. And even though none of the songs necessarily reached any of the peaks of like Prowler, they were still really excellent.
Well, let's stop tugging our dicks and let's get into the dirt.
Okay.
I don't know.
What a great sentence.
Let's stop taking our dicks and roll about in dirt. So we're going to go on the track list. Now, this album is overall shorter in runtime than the first album, because it doesn't have any really big epic pieces so much, but it does have two instrumentals. The first instrumental starts us off, which is The Ides of March.
Which feels more of like it should be just tacked on to the start of the next song, because it flows into it so well. It feels more of an intro to that song.
Yeah, it is pretty much just a intro piece, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think they did use it as before they started using different or differing intros, like Churchill's speech.
Yeah.
On the Power Slave tour, and can't remember if it's called like Arthur's Warning, which they used for like Rock and Reel, but Ides of March was what they did use at this sort of time period.
Yeah, and straight off the bat, you know that this album's going to be much more like just like much more metal, rather than more experimental like the first album.
Yeah, although there are moments where it is experimental and it is Maiden sort of testing the waters before they do their big break next up. So Ides of March just flows straight into the next song, and the next song is probably one of their more iconic songs, especially from the early period. It's a song that's still played massively to this day, which is Rothschild.
Yeah, I didn't dig it.
No.
No.
Which is
I don't know. I think it reminds me a lot of the song Iron Maiden, which I'm not sure I'm so keen on their songs where the choruses are just pretty standard shouting of a word or a phrase. I'm not so keen on that, at least from the first two albums. I just don't find them as interesting. This is a much more, again, in terms of song structure, a much more typical.
Well, this thing, I think with Rothschild, I could be wrong here. I'm pretty sure that song had been around a fair bit longer than a lot of the stuff on the album.
Okay.
Because I'm pretty sure they'd been playing it for a few years first, but just didn't record it for the first album. Oh, one thing I did forget to mention actually on the first album, Running Free, which was the other single on the album, which we noted, they did play live on Top of the Pops.
Right.
And they were the first band since The Who in 1972 to have actually played live rather than mime on Top of the Pops as well.
Cool.
Which, funnily enough, I mentioned Savoy at the very start, so full circle.
Look at that. It was all planned.
Rothschild is very generic. It's got a good bass riff. Again, it's a song that I think is better with Bruce and better live than it is.
Ah, right, I see. Yeah, maybe that's it.
Potentially. But song number 3, Murders in the Rue Morgue.
Yeah, this was actually a pretty cool song. I love the intro to the song really a lot. Like
with harmonics.
Yeah, Cliff's bass at the start of the song is so sick. What did I say?
You
Harris,
said
I meant.
Steve Harris. We're not talking about Metallica.
Oh no, I'm sorry. Steve Harris's bass at the start of this song is really, really cool. The song's got more interesting subject matter for me.
Yep.
I enjoy. Yeah, it was all right. I enjoyed that one.
I think for the first half of the album, this is the highlight.
Yeah, I would agree.
Yeah, it's just a very good song, very solid. A lot of fun to play on bass, I will say. Yeah, that riff at the intro. You don't really hear too many riffs where they use harmonics on the bass. It's usually harmonics on the guitar that you hear. But yeah, it starts off with harmonics, and it's just much rather remember if it's harmonic on a G. But yeah, it's just a really fun song to play and a really fun song to listen to. Which takes on to song number 4. Another Life. I was going to do it like a bingo caller, but I forgot what bingo callers say. You can't really say 2 fat ladies, another life. It doesn't work.
Yeah, with this song, it's weird I don't really have much to say about the first half of this album because it's stuff that we've already said. Like, you know, everyone's solid.
To be fair.
Everyone's solid. Like, the guitar solos are excellent. The riffs are pretty cool. The drumming's phenomenal. The singing's pretty, like, everyone's doing their jobs brilliantly. But the songs themselves are just pretty. They're just good, but they're not overly interesting.
Well, on that note, shall we jump straight into song number 5?
Yeah.
Genghis Khan.
Now this was like I loved this song, like, and I'm not usually huge on instrumentals, but I think this is one of the best metal instrumentals I think I've ever heard. For me,
The first half of the song I'm okay with. The
it
second half,
builds really
yes,
cool.
the second half of the song is amazing. That guitar riff. Now I'm gonna issue one of my notorious fuck yous to a band. Papa Roach, Last Resort.
Okay,
Hands down stole that fucking riff.
you know what? Yeah, you are right. And I didn't make that poll in my head, but now that you've said it, yeah.
Cunts. So Papa Roach, you're on the board, you're on our shit list with Tom Morello and the Beatles.
Yeah, Papa Roach only had a couple songs. I don't mind that. Beatles don't belong on that list. That's your list. That's not my list.
Okay, so for the podcast list, Tom Morello,
Papa Roach.
Papa Roach, Old Man Metallica.
Yeah, all right, fair.
That was after your
Yeah,
your vitriol.
wrinkly Metallica.
Yeah, old Wrinkletalica. But yeah, it's as far as instrumentals go, and I think instrumentals always have a bit of a glass ceiling above them. Like, it's hard for an instrumental, especially on a metal album, to be anything other than pretty damn good. Like, I don't have many instrumentals apart from maybe like Call of Cthulhu, which I always go to.
The problem is that they stop being interesting, like as you're listening to them, and then it just becomes flashy instrumental work. The difference with this one is it actually had a nice amount of variety and flow, and it built in a really nice way.
Yeah.
To the point that when I first heard it, I didn't like I got almost all the way through the song before I was like, oh fuck, there was no singing in that. Like that was an instrumental, and it was really really fucking awesome. Because the thing is, I've gotten used to the fact that sometimes Maiden have these really long intros before singing starts, which is fine. But yeah, that song just kept me interested to the point that I didn't even realize it was an instrumental, which is a really good sign, I think.
Well, yeah, I mean, as far as instrumentals go, the one thing you don't want people to notice is that it's an instrumental.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
Keeps them hooked.
yeah.
But I will do some foreshadowing now. There is an instrumental on one of the albums coming up on the second episode, which is not good.
Oh right.
I'll warn you straight off the bat. And now we go to song number 6, which is the get my words out. It's the same title as the album. It's Killers.
This song is awesome.
It's pretty
like I
good,
said, from Genghis Khan, I was so on board, and then this song was like fucking excellent. I love this song so much.
Again, Steve Harris, lovely bass riff, similar sort of bass riff, but faster version of Running Free.
Yeah, fair. Yeah, this song is in like the pantheon of like Iron Maiden songs that I kind of they're similar in tone, which is it's like the Trooper of this album. It's like the or maybe the Prowler of this album as well. It's really, you know, it's a good heavy song with really interesting guitar, really like, and it keeps an upbeat. It keeps the same momentum from start to finish, and it's really sick.
Yeah, it's a very fucking good song.
Mm.
People, listen to it.
Yeah.
Song number 7, Prodigal Son.
This was fucking excellent as well. So what I loved about this song is it kind of meshes all the styles that they've done previously, sort of thing. And it's got its heavy moments and then it dials back. It's got a really nice guitar riff, which usually they go for that rolling, as we said, and this doesn't do that. It's a very different Maiden song as well. It's got much more of a like a I don't know how to put it, but the guitar riff is a lot more just strummed down and really interesting. I like this song a lot, and it builds and it has a really lovely sort of story to it as well.
I concur.
Yeah.
I've got nothing else to add to that, really. Again, it's a great early Maiden song.
Yeah, really, really excellent.
I can't think of any higher praise than that.
Yeah.
Song number 8, Purgatory.
This was like on my Apple Music, this had a star next to it, so this is one of the more popular songs from the album, I think.
I'm not too sure. It's a weird song. because it's quite messy. And
Yeah.
then where you think the chorus is, that isn't the chorus. That's just the second part of the verse, and then a chorus comes in eventually.
Yeah, and I think that messiness is what I found I really liked
Yeah,
about the song. It was really unpredictable, which was really, really cool.
I do love the chorus. So the chorus is excellent. It's a
Yeah.
fantastic song.
Yeah, the chorus is really cool, and I could imagine that live and being like sung out and really, really cool.
Now, I'm assuming you probably listened to the same version of the album I did, so it would have had Twilight Zone next at number 9.
Oh, I don't know. Let me
It
just
might
double
not.
check.
It might not have. Don't know if the 2015 remaster has it.
No, I don't have Twilight Zone. I did not listen to Twilight Zone.
That's cool. I'll do this one then. Twilight Zone. It's a good early Maiden song. It's sort of there. I think I could do with it being before Purgatory. I don't like where it is on the album, only because I like the way Purgatory flows into the next song.
Yeah,
which is song number 10 if you listen to my version, song number 9 if you listen to Connor's version.
Yeah.
I say Connor's version, he didn't make this himself.
That is true.
This is the original Maiden release. Number 10, Drifter.
Yeah, and this was a sort of middle ground. So, like, this wasn't as great as the best songs on the album, but it's better than the just good songs on the album. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm different. I really like the song.
Yeah, I think it's a really, really good song, and it's definitely one of the better songs on the album. It just doesn't reach the peaks of the 3 songs before. Yeah. I don't know what it is I think they just have weird outro songs on both of these albums.
Well, I think it's the thing for me is, obviously on the basis, it goes back to the bass. The bass on that intro is fantastic. Like, it's similar to Murders in the Rue Morgue in that sort of respect.
Yeah.
It's like nice little cool, similar in key to Charlotte the Harlot.
Yeah, I think what it was with me with this song is that I really dug it until it just got a bit samey.
Yeah, fair enough. Bear in mind, it must have done that pretty poorly because it's like 2 minutes 50 seconds. I think.
Yeah, I know.
Or 3 minutes.
That's the thing. But metal songs always, to me anyway, seem longer than they are. So when they end up reaching like 8 minutes long, it's like, what the fuck?
Well, I think this song serves as a good ending for Paul Di'Anno.
Yes.
Be his last, the last song on the last album he did with them. I think it's a good song. I love his vocals on it. Love that bass riff and the guitar. Really good. I think Purgatory flows better into it than Twilight Zone does.
Yeah, fair. I don't know what Twilight Zone is, so.
Well, you flow from Purgatory straight into Drifter, so you had it. Cool. You had it the good way around. God damn it.
Yeah.
I was saying that.
Really cool.
Over the past 2 days, I have listened to this album 4 or 5 times. Only 2 of those times have had Twilight Zone on it. 3 of them have had just straight from Purgatory to Drifter. And I've played both of them on bass a lot today.
But yeah, no, it was really, really good. The whole second half of this album really saved it for me, because the first half of the album, again, really good compared to most metal bands out there. But I don't know. Do you know? Maybe I was overhyped for myself. Of like, oh yeah, I'm listening to Maiden, and like I haven't really done a deep dive into Maiden in like 10 years or something. So then I was expecting my mind to be blown, and like it only occasionally happened. And with the whole first half of this album, I was really like, oh man, like it's really good, but it's like it's not amazing. And then the second half of the album, I was like, there we go, this is the shit I was looking forward to, sort of thing.
Well, and that's the thing to bear in mind with both these albums. They're both baby Maiden. They're not.
Yeah.
They're still in the cocoon at the moment. They are not burst out as a beautiful butterfly. They will become.
Yeah, fair.
And they are going to become, and that will be where we pick up on the next installment of the Anthology.
I'd say if I had to grade this album, I would go. If I could grade just the second half from Kangaskhan, I would say it's an A.
Should we do favourite songs first?
Oh yeah, of course. We'll do that first.
And then we'll do the grading.
Oh man, what on earth is your favourite song from this?
Yeah, mine's really difficult on this album.
Is it Murders of Rue Morgue?
Nope.
Damn it.
It would have, if you had asked me yesterday, it would have been.
Oh, really?
Purgatory.
Fair.
I
It's great.
very much, like I said, I've listened to this album at least 5 times over the past couple of days. For some reason, when I heard Purgatory this morning, I zoned in on it.
Fair. Oh wait, did we mention Innocent Exile? I feel like we accidentally skipped that because that was an amazing track, by the way.
I'm trying to think of which version of the album you listened to, because mine didn't have that on.
Oh right, so I got Ides of March, Wrathchild, Murders in Rue Morgue, Another Life,
Oh, sorry,
Genghis Khan.
yes, after Genghis Khan, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, see, okay. So the version I listened to has Twilight Zone rather than Innocent Exile.
Right. Okay. Because one thing I do want to say about Innocent Exile, which is another track that I absolutely loved on the album, it has my favorite of his vocals in that track.
Yeah, it is a good song. Thankfully, I listen to enough Maiden to know what songs are.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, Innocent Exile is a really, really good song. I think it probably would have been better on this version than Twilight Zone would have been. It's a shame now that I come to think of
it. No worries. But yeah, that was a really excellent song, and Paul's vocals in that song. He has a lot to play with, and there's a lot of variety in it, and it's really cool. And I love the story.
Again, it's another example of this sort of embryonic form of Maiden starting to shift in tone towards that kind of sound.
Yeah.
Now, next time around,
great. So what was your favorite song on the album?
Purgatory.
Purgatory, yes.
Oh, I haven't guessed yours, have I? Yours is Killers.
No, Killers is no.
Genghis Khan.
No.
Fuck's sake. Innocent Exile.
It is Innocent Exile, yeah. Which is why I'm like, wait a minute, did we mention my favorite song? So no, it is Innocent Exile because I fucking adored that track. After Genghis Khan, which I really enjoyed, it was Innocent Exile that then I was like, oh my god, I'm on board with this. Maybe it's because of the track listings. So if Killers was before, then maybe it could have been Killers. I think it's because the album really shifted for me that maybe I have a soft spot for Innocent Exile, but all of those songs on the second half of the album could have been my favorite. But Innocent Exile for me, at the moment, fresh after listening to it again today, that's my favorite on the album. It's a really great song.
Was Killers at least your second favorite?
Yeah, Killers and Purgatory like neck and neck as second favorite.
Okay, I'll take some pride in that. You'll please know Murders in the Rue Morgue and Drifter would have been my choices yesterday or the day before.
Fair. Yeah, Murders in Rue Morgue was a really interesting song.
And again, one thing we haven't really touched on, a lot of literary references in these as well. The Ides of March, Murders in the Rue Morgue. Genghis Khan is more of a historical figure, but they tend to do that a lot as well. And we'll see that more and more over the next few albums. Final grade.
So with this album, if I could split it from Genghis Khan, I would say it's
cleft it in twain.
Yeah, if I could cleft it in twain, it would be an A from Genghis Khan, and then before Genghis Khan, it would have been around about a C plus. I think because of that, the whole overall album, I'm going to go a solid B plus or a B.
Stick with a B plus.
I'll stick with the B plus. I do think overall, if you were to lay both albums out in front of me and tell me which one do I can only listen to one. Which one are you picking? I'll pick the second album, even though I love some of the tracks from the first album so much. And I think overall, from both of these albums, I think Prowler's my favorite song out of both albums. But I do fucking dig the second half of this album so much.
Now, the reason I told you to stick with a B plus is because that was the grade that I gave it this morning. So we're in unison here. B plus. I think it's a good solid album. The second half definitely picks it up. I prefer the first one overall, but I don't know whether that's more. I don't know whether it's nostalgia or just more songs that I love and recognise.
Yeah, I think overall I just didn't dig that album as much as you.
Yeah, and that's fair. And that's what this whole podcast is about.
Yeah, and I know that neither of these albums are going to be my favorites by the end of this discography. That's the thing. I'm really excited by what's coming up, especially the next 3 albums. Actually, I'm super super excited to dig into.
Now, as a teaser, I'm going to make a prediction as to what Connor's favourite albums are going to be by the end of the whole anthology. And it will be, would you want to tell me what your favourite is at the moment from memory?
So my favorite from memory, just from, even though I couldn't even name a single song from it, my favorite from memory, from pure enjoyment of listening to it
Satellite
from start,
15.
from start
Coming
to
home.
finish, was Final Frontier, because I remember listening to that from start to finish on a long drive and really enjoying it. Kind of getting the feeling that I got on the second half of this second album, but from start to finish. So I remember that, and that's the name that always sticks in my head. It's like, oh, Final Frontier is an amazing Maiden album. And then, but also looking at track listings, it would potentially be Number of the Beast, because there's so many songs from Number of the Beast that I do still listen to and I still recognize.
Now, people, I'm putting all my eggs in this basket now. In terms of what Connor's favourite album is going to be by the end of the whole anthology, there are only two possible choices. It will either be Power Slave or be Seventh Son of a Seventh Son.
Lovely.
And I guarantee by the end of this whole thing, it will be one of those. If not, you can think of a forfeit for me.
Oh, wow. Okay. I'll think long and hard about
that. I'm laying it all on the line. Because
I got a horrible one.
Now, to be completely transparent as well, my favourite for the majority of my time as being a Maiden fan would be Power Slave. I love that album top to bottom. Recently,
that's known, I think, through most heavy metal communities as well as like being one of the best heavy metal albums of all time.
It's phenomenal. However, over the past sort of 6 months, getting more and more into Seventh Son of Seventh Son. Now, bear in mind, I've been a Maiden fan since I was probably about 12, 13, so I've had a good solid sort of 13 years, almost 14 years of listening to them. But for some reason, Seventh Son of the Seventh Son never chimed with me before, but I did the whole back catalogue fairly recently, and then hearing that again, I was like, this fucking album is amazing. So that is currently my favourite. And I don't see that. I don't think that's likely to change me listening to everything, because I do listen to them regularly enough anyway.
Yeah.
But for you, it's going to be a journey into the darkness, a journey into the unknown.
I'm excited, man. I'm really excited.
Now, and just to give everybody a teaser, the next episode, so we're hopefully going to be putting the episodes of the anthology out once per month. Now, with regards to so we're going to be doing 3 albums coming up. So it'll be Number of the Beast, the debut of Bruce Dickinson, A Peace of Mind with the debut of Nico McBrain, and then Power Slave. So it's going to be 3 fucking phenomenal albums. However, one of those albums has an instrumental that I don't like, and another one of those albums has the worst opening track I've ever heard. So those are the teasers, and let's see if a few people out there can guess and tell us. All our fans. And all that leaves us with, after this recording, is pretty much just time to say, follow us on Facebook. You can find us at The Songs That Made Us. Follow us on Twitter, at songs_us. You can find us on YouTube. You can find us on Spotify. You can find us on Podbean. Don't stay in the dark. Keep up with us. If you follow us on Twitter, you get to see what my choice of song of the day is, because Connor doesn't really use Twitter. And he doesn't ever give me any suggestions. So more often than not, when I remember to put out a song of the day, sometimes it can be days between. Other times I will put out 4 songs of the day. It's really hit and miss, but go on there. Like us, tell us that you love us, follow, subscribe to us on YouTube, whatever the fuck people do nowadays. Just do something. Get in touch with us.
Tell you what, as well, don't get afraid to like give us suggestions and stuff. Converse with us. If you've got like a band or an artist that we've never mentioned that you're unsure of whether we know about them or you'd love us to listen to and give our thoughts on, let us know. That would be really cool.
Or, better than that, if you've got an artist or a band that we haven't mentioned that you love and you want to talk about them, and you would be comfortable coming on the podcast, get in touch with us. Email us. It's the songs that made us pod@outlook.com.
Yeah.
Well, I assume it's that. It might not be. Wait there. I should probably. Saying that, we've got a new subscriber today on YouTube.
Hey, hello subscriber.
Yeah, it's outlook.com. Sorry, I had to double check. It's the songs that made us pod@outlook.com. And yeah, coming up, we're going to be keeping on with these anthologies. We're going to be coming up with more band suggestions that we can look at. We also have something in the works, which could
A cool idea.
which could be an audio spectacular. It could also be a video spectacular. Who knows? But it'll be our first returning guest.
Yeah.
Yeah, boy. So now that we've tickled your taint once more, we will love you and leave you. And I say that again, it's only me and Connor are listening, and maybe one of our future guests who does listen. But let's get the word out there, motherfuckers.
Yeah, boy. I'm really impressed with us. This was actually a really professional podcast. Well done, Jake.
I know. I just realised that we don't really promote ourselves in any way, shape, or form. So the people who do listen are like, oh, okay, well, these are just either dicks on YouTube or dicks on Podbean. No one knows of any ways of following us. But speak to us. Let us know that you love us, because we need ego boosts. Quite frankly, we're both fragile souls.
I need attention.
But no, seriously, thank you for anybody who has listened, anybody who has got in touch with us, and anybody who has made our world nicer. And we don't do this for a living. We're not here to make money from this. We just want to talk about fucking music.
Yeah, man. They talk about some really cool stuff that we enjoy in a really weird time.
Do you not think we should have done this part on the very first episode?
Yeah, it's kind of like, I feel like this is like we're being reborn.
It's like a soft reboot.
It is. All the canon is wiped.
Oh no, the canon's still going to be there. People, go back. If you do listen to this episode, you find yourself randomly on this episode, go back and listen to the archives.
Yeah.
The archives.
It's a real patchwork.
It's hit and miss, some of it, quite frankly. There are some choice statements made by at least one of us, which really shouldn't be heard in public, but we just hope people have a laugh, because that's what we're here to do.
Exactly.
And with that, people, sayonara. We love you.
Adios.
Ciao.
Why did we just go to every language?
Goodbye. Cheerio. And we're done.